Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Parenting and You with me, Dr. Shefali. I love shows like this. We are doing an update show where we're going to learn from past guests and see how they are doing with all the tools and strategies that they learned. I love shows like this because I get to see in real time the transformations that conscious parenting brings about. Coming up next, an update from a mother. She was struggling with her 4-year-old son's desire to eat only candy and spicy chips and processed foods. She was really struggling. Well, let's check in with her next. I'm so excited because joining me now is Ananya, a mother I spoke to on a past episode. She was struggling with her 4-year-old son's unhealthy eating habits, and I tried to help her. And so many parents, Ananya, gave me feedback about your episode. So I'm so excited to welcome you back. Can you remind our listeners what your issue was back then and how things have changed since then?
Of course. Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me back to your podcast. This time I'm really excited. Last time I was very nervous. Yes. So my 4-year-old had picked up some really bad eating habits. He only wanted ultra processed food, namely Takis. And then we were having a hard time getting him to eat anything else, any of the other nutritious foods that we were eating at home. It just seemed impossible. I told myself it's just a phase. It's going to be over. But I had honestly given up. I was like, I need help. So I found the opportunity to ask you to reach out to you for help. And I thought, why not? If everything else has failed, let me just do it. It was nerve-wracking. I've never been so public with my issues. And I'm so glad I made that decision because that's what you told me was exactly what I needed to hear. And I didn't get that anywhere else. It was a jolt. And like you mentioned, it was tough love. But I really had to say no and sit with that discomfort. Of course, he's 4 years old. He had tantrums. We cut out Takis. I know you suggested writing toxins on top of the labels. I didn't go that far, but my relationship with that with the food-like substance had changed. So I was like, we're not buying that anymore. It doesn't matter what he does. We're just saying it's a no. And I had to really sit through that discomfort. That I think was the hardest for me, but I had to remind myself that it's for his own good and that this is the only thing that's going to work for him. And I constantly reminded myself that if we don't break this habit now at 4, like you said, it would be much more difficult when he's older.
You know, what I saw you struggle with is something that so many parents struggle with. We want our children to be happy. We want them to get whatever they want. But when they are doing something negative for them, like eating Takis all the time or any processed food, it's not about one food or the other, or engaging in any toxic behavior, then we are in a conundrum, right? And what you learned that day is what all of us need to learn, which is how do you create loving and compassionate boundaries, but not just create them from your mind, but actually embody them. And the practice of embodying a boundary is how things change. You know, it's one thing to say, don't eat it. But what I'm hearing from you is you learned to really embody the idea, the notion, the philosophy that this is self-harming for him. And that's when you changed your habits and your behaviors. Is that correct?
That's very true. I also appreciated you telling me, I don't want to say labels, but the enabling, I was an enabler. I was enabling that behavior. And I was like, I can't do that. I'm his mother. I can't do that. If I'm enabling a good behavior, that's different. But I can't have that label on me. There's no way. So that kind of stung a little bit. But, you know, I appreciate you saying that to me. And the piece with the people pleasing, that I think has opened up a lot more, I don't know, I want to say a lot more awareness around that habit of mine. So I've definitely become a lot more comfortable with someone else's behavior or mood. I'm like, it's not my responsibility. I'll do what's best for me. I'll do what's best for them, but it's not my responsibility. I can't carry that load. It's impossible.
Ananya, look how many things you learned. That's amazing.
I know. So thank you. I mean, I know I wrote back to one of your producers and I was like, I have to say thank you because so relieved that I did that.
Fabulous. So now tell me, is there anything you're struggling with right now that has shown up in a new way? You see, what happens is that the negative patterns that we've created willingly, through our subconscious, don't just go away because we've woken up. Now we have to clean up the debris from the massive fallout, right, of the chemical toxicity from years of bad habits. So if you're noticing that, okay, you cleaned up one part of the behavior, but now it's still showing up in other areas, don't be hard on yourself. This is the process of cleaning up. It takes a few years. So don't put pressure on yourself that every area now needs to change all at once.
Very true. I mean, I've been listening to your podcast quite a lot. And I know with a lot of other parents, you go back to their childhood. And that got me wondering a little bit. And I grew up in a very strict household. My parents are very strict. I didn't grow up here. I'm an immigrant. My son is first generation American. And when I was a kid, we had to finish our plate. We had to finish our food, eat everything. And if we didn't, there were consequences. I was terrified as a kid. And I think when I became a mother, I just kind of told myself, I'm not doing that. That was rough. Like my relationship with food and just the pressure I had to eat every single bite of everything that was served on the plate was I didn't want that for my son, not just with food, but with a lot of other aspects of his childhood. So I think I went a little bit too far.
You think? Right. You're like, here, take any candy you want. But that's so natural because you did not like when somebody governed and dictated your will, that you didn't want to do that to anyone else. But can I say something even deeper?
Yes.
It's connected to your people pleasing. Because your will and your voice was dominated and subjugated and suppressed, it's your instinct to let someone else's voice override. Okay? So when your kid says, and I'm kind of like this and I have to work on this too. So when your child says, give me Takis, without thinking, like you're so habituated to be like a toy soldier, like a puppet, you go, okay, it's your habit, right? I had to go on a moratorium. My friends made me go on a curfew that if anyone asks you a question, you're not allowed to give an answer, because I would automatically say yes. Because of the toy soldier, good girl, I'm compliant, I'm so good. But that is actually something toxic for us. And something you can practice is to create that space between someone's demand, your child, your partner, anyone, and Ananya's desire to be the good girl and fulfill the demand. So you were just working on that robotic people-pleasing mode with your son as well.
Very true. Now I also I feel like it's a learnable skill, but it's hard to also master it. So I'll sometimes pause and be like, okay, what do I do next? Let's pick the middle ground or something on those lines.
Yes, very good. You're giving yourself an opportunity to not react, but to learn another way of processing what you feel before you just give in to what someone else feels.
Very true. We actually joke in our house with my son's personality. I know he's only 4, but his personality is like, he's been here before. If we say he's the boss and we're just his employees, he dictates everything. And I feel like I may have missed the thin line that goes between letting him blossom, letting him flourish, not intervening. He's born with his essence. Like I know you say that a lot with, when letting them come to their full potential, and then having my boundaries around that. I think that's where I need to work on, having that line.
Right. You're so overdoing the listening to his essence that you're not honoring things that are not good, but you're not, again, honoring Ananya, right? So it's okay to tell your child, and I struggle with this too, to say to your child, no, I'm tired. No, not now. No, it's not okay, right? Because you're honoring your wisdom, your intuition. So again, it's connected to that people pleasing. You just give your power away so fast that you end up depleted, unhappy, in a master slave kind of dynamic where you'll become resentful of your son later. And that's not good for him either. But I'll tell you the good thing of what you're doing. You are listening to his essence. I'm sure your son feels super safe with you, super celebrated. Yeah, he feels like the boss of his kingdom. And that's also an empowering feeling. You don't want him to feel like he's the boss of every kingdom, but at least he feels in his power in your house. That's something you never had. So that's one way you've broken the pattern, and that's a good thing.
Thank you. That was probably one of the first things I told myself when I found out I was going to have a child. Some things that I was not going to, I didn't think so deeply about things that I was going to do, but it was mostly things that I was not going to do. So I do get the fear-based,
Yeah.
the source was a lot of fear, but I feel like maybe I should shift it more towards love and empowerment.
Right. Love and empowerment of yourself. I love you and I love myself. I want to do it for you, but I'm tired myself, or I'm taking care of myself. And that doesn't mean you're neglecting him. It doesn't mean you're ignoring him. It just means you're teaching him that you also are a human being and you also have a voice, and he can take care of you a little bit as well. So is there anything that you're struggling with right now that I can offer some insight?
The grocery store trips have been interesting because in our house, it's out of sight, out of mind. We only have healthy options and some alternative options to his, like the snack that we got out of this house. But yes, when we do take him on the grocery store trips, I think he started reading. He can definitely see the purple bags and he'll like go towards us. I was like, oh my God, what are we going to notice? So like I have to distract him and take him another way. So there's been a few incidents where it's become a bit of an incident, but so far we've stayed on the course. So I don't know if you have any recommendations on how to make the grocery store. I know it's a little silly.
No, it's not. It's about any boundary, toy store, grocery store. Well, couple things. Number one, it's not your kid's fault. When I go to the grocery store, to the snack aisle, I want to have all the pretzels and the junk food. So what you're doing is you're dangling some yummy treats in front of your child and you're baiting him, and then you're telling him no. So it's good that he needs to learn how to have self-control, but it's a bit too much to ask a kid who's been, addicted to processed food to now suddenly go cold turkey. So what I would encourage you is to try to take him less till he's weaned off this. But another way is to do some role playing at home, pretend like you're going through the aisle of the snacks and the processed food, and how are we going to react and what are we going to do? Are we going to throw a tantrum? Are we going to walk by? Give him some skills to manage his emotions when he's at the grocery store. But my advice to you, if you're in a hurry and you're a tired mom, try not to take him to the damn grocery store. Not to avoid the struggle, but you don't have to deal with every issue all at once.
I like that. Yes.
Well, I'm very proud of you because it sounds like you've made a big turnaround and you've gone deep to your issue. That's what I really admire about you, because you didn't stay stuck at my kid is eating processed food. You've really seen that this is something deeper about your own relationship with yourself and how it shows up in every area of your life. And that is the gift of children. They show us one thing through their behavior that is the yarn that takes the whole ball of wool apart about your entire psychology. So I'm really proud of you for taking the challenge and empowering yourself to follow your wisdom and not be steamrolled by your people pleaser. Because that's what is the boss of the house. You know who the boss of the house is? Not your child. You know who the boss is? Your own people pleaser self. It's that self that is ruling the house, not your child. Your child is just being a child. But your need to be the best mother and people please, that's running the house. And most of us, Indian girls especially, or first generation immigrants, we have that attitude because we were raised in such traditional ways that we learned to be people pleasers. So many women suffer from this syndrome. So hopefully you will break the pattern.
I have to find the middle ground.
Yes, you do. Out of self-love. Self-love will be your leader.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Ananya. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Shefali. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Coming up next, an update from a past guest who was really struggling with her children's big emotions. Joining me now is Priya, who I've spoken to on a previous episode entitled The Secret to Happier Kids. Last time when I spoke to Priya, it was all about her 9-year-old son's anxiety issues. She's about to give us an update. Hi, Priya. Remind us what you were going through back then.
Hi, Dr. Shefali. Thank you for having me back. So my son was showing signs of anxiety. I was seeing that his relationship with my daughter, who's 5 years younger than him, was quite strained. And it seemed as though he was either struggling with some kind of jealousy or just taking out his anxiety and sort of feelings that he was holding inside, taking them out on her, which was obviously making me feel really anxious, very stressed out, and just almost just unable to figure out what was going on.
Yeah. So how have things been? What was your big takeaway and how did things change?
Yeah, so last time we spoke, I focused in on some of the stuff that you said about not being responsible for our children's happiness. And I also reflected a lot on my own childhood, because that's something that you and I also discussed previously. So looking at those two things separately, one of the major things that I did was try to reflect on why I was trying to focus in on their happiness all the time and not just letting them be in their feelings. So I reflected on my childhood, and I think I have always just tried to be happy. I've tried to be, a low maintenance person that's always okay with everything, always happy. And I don't know if it was real when I really dig deep. So I think I have been taking that out on my children in a way, and just having the same expectations of them, more my son than my daughter. And so what I've tried to do is, again, also through reading your books, is just let them be in their feelings, let them be sad when they're feeling sad, and just give them a safe space to be in when they're feeling that way. And just to help them to understand what they're feeling, not necessarily tell them what they're feeling, but just sit with them and help them develop the tools to understand what's going on inside, and also to understand that it's fine. So one of the major things that my son was experiencing was sort of bouts of anger. And I didn't like it, because being angry is no good, right? That's what we're sort of taught to think. And I realized how wrong that was and how unfair that was. And he's very young. It's really unfair to make a child of that age, of any age, to think, or of anyone to think that it's bad to be angry. So I let him be in his feelings more, or I have been letting him be in his feelings more. I've been holding back my own anger, which resulted from his anger. I felt triggered, and I've really worked on not allowing myself to feel triggered, or if I did feel triggered, to really work on that reaction. It's just been a completely different situation. He is able to understand what he's feeling. He's now able to communicate why he's feeling that way. So it's sort of been a step-by-step thing, which is something that he would struggle with before, because I wasn't really giving him the space to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to fix the situation. So if it was an argument with his sister, my daughter, I would just try to fix that situation, as opposed to understand, okay, what's going on with you? Why are you feeling this way? And obviously that's helped my daughter as well, because she's looking at how I'm reacting to him and how he is explaining where he's at, what's going on in his head. And now she's doing it.
Wow.
So as a result, when they interact, and when they're going to still have arguments, that's absolutely normal. But when they do, or when they just annoy each other, they've started to work it out, it's when I look at it, I'm like, wow, this is completely different situation.
Wow. It sounds so incredible. Like you could, teach people now how to do this. So what was the one thing you feel you began to do differently? Teach parents, like if you had to teach parents, what is the one thing you had to stop doing or become mindful about and do less? What would that be?
If I had to use one word, fixing. I've stopped fixing. That takes a lot of internal reflection,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm still doing. I don't think that's going to stop. And just looking back at why I feel the need to fix, or felt the need to fix. But I've just really taken a stand on that need to fix. And to put it into context, if they are in an argument, if they are bickering about something, I just sit back and say, this is normal. they're children. They're going to bicker. It's okay. You don't need to fix this. And B, I mediate if I need to. I don't look at it from the perspective of, he's in the wrong, or she's in the wrong, or he's being annoying, or I don't label it. I just try to look at them as two individuals that are feeling some which way. They're engaging with each other. And when people engage with each other at whatever age you are, you feel things, and that's totally okay. And that's normal. And I don't need to fix it.
Priya, that is incredible. I mean, you've really done a whole 180. You've really moved things within you. You see, that's the thing. Once you identified that you kept intervening and actually made it worse, you made that the whatever dynamic was worse, but you've become aware. So when you feel the urge to jump in, are you aware in the moment that it shows up in your body?
For most part. I mean, I'm not 100% perfect yet. I still have work to do because I think it's an ongoing process. It's like an anger bubbling up rather, and I can sort of feel it coming here. It's similar to what my son used to describe to me, actually, with him. His feeling in the stomach, and it kind of just bubbles up into almost like a rage. And I start feeling really dysregulated and irritated. It's like, and I know all mothers feel this way. You just feel irritated. But the moment I start feeling like that now, I try to take a step back and it's all, just look at it holistically and remind myself, this is normal. This is normal, and I don't need to fix it. And I don't intervene until I really need to. So I'm lucky my children don't hit each other or anything like that. They just bicker. So it's rare that I actually have to do much. It's maybe one of them will come to me.
If I could explain to people listening what you're really doing is so incredible. So number one, you've learned to observe when your own body tells you that you are in a state of dysregulation. You call it a bubbling, but somebody else could call it a tingling. Somebody could call it a breathlessness. Somebody could call it a feeling like they're checking out, passing out. Whatever your body's way is to tell you that you are in a state of dysregulation and distress, it is so powerful when you begin to notice it showing up in the body. Your body's telling you, hey, red flag, red flag, red flag. So now you notice it, and now you see that if, and I talk about in my book, The Parenting Map, the 5 different masks you can wear. One of them is the fighter. You've described the fixer. Then there's the feigner, the freezer, and the fleer. And if no one has read the book yet, something you should do. So when your body is in a state of anxiety, typically we put on a mask, an ego mask, to help us deal with the anxiety. You used to put on the mask of fixer, which took you out of your body and made you control the outside world in an attempt to control your rage and your dysregulation on the inside. But because you began fixing, it never really fixed anything. You began to control the other, and then your son felt further, disconnected and isolated from you because you weren't really connecting to him. You were connecting to your own body. And this is the process of awakening. It's recognizing what's going on in your body, taking a pause, taking that, holistic perspective and becoming aware of the masks that we wear, and then putting a pause, not engaging in that same pattern. And that's what you've done. You've begun to break your patterns. And it sounds like you're observing the incredible game-changing results right in front of your eyes. You must be feeling like you're a different mother now.
Yeah, it's, and you know what? It's not just me feeling like I'm a different mother. I just feel so happy for the children because I see, the only way I can describe it is I see my son sort of bouncing off the walls now. I don't, let's not be unrealistic. They will have emotions, and that's fine. But that's the point, right? Majority of the time, he is now just himself. I'm not seeing that anxiety anymore. I'm not seeing the stress showing up in his face or his words. He's just himself. And I can see it's him being himself because of the language he uses, the way he laughs now, the way he smiles. I feel like all of that was just hidden before. He didn't know what it felt to feel that way because he was just so filled with anxiety because I was not connecting with him enough, and because he couldn't recognize what was going on inside of him.
Incredible. I'm so proud of you. And you're right. It's not so much about you. It's that they have a different ability to now be themselves. You've given them the gift of their own feelings and a sense of safety and a sense of presence. So congratulations, you've done the work,
Thank you.
but you know it's a never-ending process, so you have to keep at it. But I'm so glad you came back on here to give us an update. These stories make me feel so grateful to be able to do the work I do. So I really want every listener out there to know that you too, when Priya came, she was overwhelmed. She was, really struggling. But by implementing some of the techniques that I suggested to her, she turned her world around. And so can you, the listener, also. By learning the principles of conscious parenting and living, you too can transform your relationships. Thank you so much, Priya. I'm so grateful you came back.
Thank you so much.
It's so incredible when parents begin to practice conscious parenting and they begin to see the changes within weeks, if not moments. And Priya is a testament to the power of these principles. I have been doing this work for 2 decades now, and every single human who applies the principles I teach them transform their lives. There is no way you will not be a different human being, a better human being and parent after learning these tools and strategies of conscious parenting. So for each one of you out there who's feeling lost or confused or overwhelmed, there is a way out, but you do need to give yourself the opportunity to become a student, to enter the level of a beginner's mind and learn the tools and strategies of conscious parenting. You too can be a Priya who manages to turn their relationships around. I hope you enjoyed listening to these updates as much as I did. I know how warm my heart feels to know that more and more parents all across the globe are implementing conscious parenting strategies and transforming not just themselves, but their relationship with their children. I can't thank you enough for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode of Parenting and You with me, Dr. Shefali. Parenting and You with Dr. Shefali is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional medical, psychological, psychotherapeutic, coaching, healthcare, or other qualified professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment.